You've probably heard of Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor who forged the German Empire with blood and iron. But have you heard of his cousin Fredrick, the one they called the fool of the family? This isn't a story about politics or war. It's a story about a different kind of strength. Fredrick von Bismarck was, by all accounts, the black sheep. While his cousin Otto was conquering parliaments and redrawing the map of Europe, Fredrick was, well, he was mostly just being Fredrick. He was gentle, absent-minded, and more interested in the patterns of clouds than the lines on a battlefield map. The family saw him as a disappointment, a soft, sentimental dreamer in a lineage of hard, practical men. They'd send him on simple errands, and he'd return hours later empty-handed, but with a detailed story about a conversation he'd had with a stray dog or a particularly interesting beetle. Useless, they muttered, a fool. One harsh winter, a brutal wave of influenza swept through the Bismarck estate. It was swift and merciless. Servants, stable hands, and even some of the junior members of the family fell ill. The local doctor was overwhelmed, and a grim sense of fear settled over the household. The healthy barricaded themselves away, terrified of catching the sickness. Otto, ever the pragmatist, was in Berlin, deep in political maneuvering, blissfully unaware of the crisis back home. But Fredrick, the family fool, did something no one expected. He didn't hide, he didn't run. He walked straight into the heart of the sickness. He moved into the servants' quarters, the most heavily affected part of the estate. With no medical training, he did the only things he knew how. He brought cool water to soothe fevers. He sat with the delirious, speaking to them in his calm, gentle voice, telling them his silly stories about beetles and clouds. He held the hands of the dying, offering a simple human presence when everyone else had abandoned them in fear. He spoon-fed broth to those too weak to eat and ensured the fires were always stoked against the biting cold. For weeks, Fredrick was a tireless, ghost-like figure, moving from bedside to bedside. He barely slept. He ate scraps when he remembered to. The very people who had once mocked him now looked upon him with a kind of awestruck reverence. He wasn't a statesman, he wasn't a soldier, but in that small, isolated world of sickness and fear, he was a hero. When the illness finally passed and Otto returned from Berlin, he found a transformed estate. He was stunned by the stories of his cousin's quiet, unwavering courage. Later, while walking the grounds, Otto found Fredrick sitting by the lake, sketching a duck. Otto stood there for a long moment, watching the man he and his family had so long dismissed. He walked over and sat beside him. "Fredrick," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "They tell me you saved us." Fredrick just smiled a little vaguely. "The sick needed company," he said simply, "and the ducks are particularly charming this time of year." In that moment, Otto von Bismarck, the man of iron, finally understood. There is more than one kind of strength in this world. There is the strength that builds empires and wins wars, the kind that roars and commands. But there is also a quieter strength. The strength of compassion, of empathy, of showing up when everyone else runs away. It was the strength of the family fool. And maybe, just maybe, it was the strongest of them all.